So, hello, greetings. Very good evening to all of you and welcome back to another episode of CrimeTak Story. I hope the whole family is good and taking care of themselves. The story of today. This is the story of a writer. And coincidentally, when I am narrating this story today, I found that this case is still going on in a court of America. Also, in the next 5 weeks, or maybe 2 weeks, the court will give its verdict. This case is about a murder, and there is a lot of discussion about that murder in some areas of America. As this is the story of a 71-year-old lady and her 65-year-old husband, this story begins on June 2, 2018. It was 7:30 in the morning. A person who lives in the Oregon area of the United States, Daniel Portland. Daniel Brophy was a good chef. He was 65 years old. He worked on the ship. Once, he was on duty in Portland that day. It was around 7:30 in the morning. He was in the kitchen when the ship arrived. And coincidentally, the other employees hadn't come there yet, and they were in the other part of the building. He was all alone in the kitchen. 2 gunshots fired. After a while, some other employees who work in the same place come to the kitchen. When they come to the kitchen, they see that Daniel Brophy is lying on the floor, covered in a pool of blood. They called the police at the hospital immediately. The ambulance arrives and takes him away. There were 2 bullets in the chest and 1 in the back. The doctors tried their best, but they couldn't able save him. After a while, Daniel Brophy dies. Now, the way the bullet was shot at first sight, it was not a suicide, because there is a bullet on the chest and the other was on the back, which means that someone shot from behind. And maybe when he turned around, the other bullet hit his chest. After this, the police filed a murder case. The investigation began. The incident occurred on June 2, 2018. Police find out that Nancy Brophy and Daniel Brophy got married in 1971, and now she is 71 years old. Daniel is 65, 6 years younger than her. They say they loved each other a lot. They lived together all their lives. Police also asked all the neighbors and people they worked with, but nothing is found. On the other hand, it was found that Daniel Brophy is a well-known personality, as she has been written in many novels. Also, the characters and themes of his novels, which were mostly romantic. He wrote all those things with full of romance. So his name was reputed as a novelist. Now the police keep investigating. Although after the incident of June 2, on June 3, Nancy posts this shocking news on Facebook where she wrote that, "My husband and my best friend Daniel Brophy is no more in this world. Someone shot him yesterday. And many of you who are close to us, please don't call me as I am not in a position to talk to anyone. I apologize for that. This is a really bad news." She posted this on Facebook on June 3, 2018. Then she posted another post. "When everything happened, it was a pity that I was not there at that time. I was gone out somewhere." Now there are 2 posts. The police kept investigating. The police searched for SecTV footage of the Oregon area of Portland. When they saw the footage, a photo shocked the police. In that photo, they saw Nancy's car after 13 minutes of this incident passed by the building. After 13 minutes of the time that passed, the Brophy was killed. So, there were some places where there were streets, so the car didn't get stuck in the camera. But with the SecTV camera near the building, I showed it to them, and with that camera, we found out that Nancy was present in that area. When the police saw Nancy's Facebook post, they were a little surprised, because the post said that I coincidentally wasn't important that day. The CT footage shows that the incident was very close, but they themselves say that the incident was not in the city. The police had a doubt. The police asked Nancy. When all this was happening, someone told Nancy about a novel, and the novel was even more shocking. After all, that novel was about a murder story. And the title of the novel was How to Murder Your Husband. Although Nancy wrote this novel in 2011, she wrote something in simple and clear words. And that's why she had a title like this, How to Murder Your Husband. She also wrote many novels before this. One was written in 2011, Then after 7 years, in 2018, she wrote this How to Murder Your Husband novel, about which we have already discussed in the story. In the novel, many things were written that were very similar to the scene of crime. The title have already spoke that it's not difficult to kill someone, even your husband. It's easy. Now, the police didn't get any other clues. There was no witness. The novel and SecTV footage were pointing to two things towards Nancy. But the police were very careful in their every step. In one novel, they were writing about how to murder your husband and then killing them, how to combine these two. The second one was that the accused thought they could escape very easily, as they said that I had written this in grade 11, not presently. In addition, she said that I'm not so stupid that I write it and put it into practice in my own house, that I killed my own husband, and I also write about how to kill my husband. The police thought that they needed more evidence. Otherwise, the case will get worse. During this time, the police came to know that some time ago, where they find that the ghost gun, among many different types of guns, was purchased by Nancy. Nancy had even filed a lawsuit against him because the police were doubtful, where she gives a statement where she mentions some points she set down. She was writing novels, and for that, she needs a proper research to write them. For example, if someone had to be shot with a bullet, how would the pistol work and what would it do? So this was not for murder, but for the plot of his next novel. These were the things I had purchased. The police thought that this too might be useless evidence in court. But then they found out that Nancy's house had a shooting range. And 2 days before June, April and May, Nancy went to the shooting range many times and practiced. Now the question was, why did she practice? To shoot her husband or to get her experience from the next novel plot she was writing? All these things were in front of the police. But the problem was that there was no solid evidence or eyewitness. But no other murderer was found, and the police were convinced that no one else was involved. So the police forced Nancy to be arrested. And eventually Nancy was arrested in 2020. After being arrested, the case was presented in court. But unfortunately, as the case was presented in court, but Corona signed it. And gradually, the whole world was under the control of Corona. In America, many more people were killed. In New York, many people were dying. Millions of people were affected by this due to the coronavirus. The whole world was locked up. The courts were also locked up, just like in our country. So, this case got stuck in that circle. Then, in 2021, the coronavirus took over. It was even more difficult. In the course of time, the year 2022 has come. This case was in court for 2 years. The case did not progress further. After 2 years, the situation became normal. Corona is almost over for the whole world. After that, the hearing in this case began 2 weeks ago. In this same April, the court has time to make its decision in 7 weeks. Now the argument given by the governmental lawyer in front of the court. But maybe she was so smart she gave the same argument. She said that the day this murder took place, 13 minutes after that, Nancy's car was seen in that area. Nancy lied that she was not there. So why did she lie? Secondly, when the murder took place, there was no one else there. There was no one who could be suspected. So then, the suspicions about Nancy are put to rest. Thirdly, before the murder, she practiced shooting at the shooting range. And here, the murder happened with a gun, and 2 bullets were fired. Third, the fourth reason was that she had written a novel 7 years ago, How to Kill Your Husband, and her husband died. And in the same way, the novel was pointed out. In this novel too, in How to Kill Your Husband, bullets were used. All this was given as evidence. But after this, the most solid evidence was given, which showed that the police can now surround Nancy. During the investigation, we learned shocking information. We found out that Daniel Brophy, Nancy's husband, had bought insurance 4 years ago in his name. And the value of this insurance was $1.04 million. $14 lake is a very big amount. If we talk about Indian currency, it is around 1 crore. After that, In the last 5 to 6 years, their financial condition had deteriorated. Earlier, many people used to come to the Novel World League for some money. Daniel Brophy was working for the ship, but his age was increasing, and he had bought many things. So these are the Mayan ships, and these are the ones. And on top of that, he bought a $1, 4 cents million banknote. Now, the amount of this banknote was quite high in premium. The financial situation was not good. But when the police broke the record of the house, it was found that in the last 5 to 6 years, this Brophy family spent a lot of money. They stopped going out. They used very little. They used fewer cars. They went to parties. All this had no meaning. So they spent a lot of money. But one thing, that after doing everything, they never delayed the premium amount. Even if something happened, Nancy used to pay. Once she paid $16,000 for the last payment. $16,000. So always pay the premium amount on time. So all these things were cut from the expenses. Then suddenly, the bill was so big. What is all this? Then the police took out a motive. The motive of the police was that at the age of 65, 60 was actually even less at that time. Daniel Brophy signed the bima. Now he signed the bima in his name. His wife was 71 years old. She is now 65. So why not in the name of the wife, and why not in the name of the husband? The first question was this. The second was that when there was so much crisis, why did he sign the bima for such a heavy amount of money? Then the story that the police told was that Nancy killed her husband for 1.4 million bima, and it was written in the charge sheet in the court. Nancy said that my husband was not only my husband, but also my best friend, and we always stayed together. But the reason for the government lawyer was that the amount of bima was the main motive. Nancy gets all this money after her husband's death, and that is why Nancy got rid of her husband. And this is also the reason why she wrote the same story 7 years ago, How to Kill Your Husband. The court accepted all these things, but the court made an important decision last week. They said that all the evidence in the murder case should be kept, but remove this novel from the court's proceedings. There is no reason to consider Nancy a murderer just because of the novel. The novel was written 7 years ago. It could be a coincidence. But after writing that novel, Nancy will kill him, according to the novel. The court does not accept these things, because it is just a rumor. So now this book, for which she wrote the novel, How to Kill Your Husband, remove it from the evidence room. And the other evidence, whether it is CCTV footage, practice at the shooting range, or the presence of the victim on the occasion, you keep all these things. So the court has refused to accept this novel as evidence. The jitters are ongoing. And the decision of this court will be made in the next 4 to 5 weeks. For now, Nancy is in custody in jail. She goes to court for a hearing. But what will be the outcome of this case? Will Nancy be punished for her husband's murder? Will she be acquitted? And is there any connection with this murder novel? All these things are still mysteries and puzzles. As soon as this puzzle is revealed, I will definitely bring its follow-up to you. This is my promise. The day the case is decided, I will come to you with all the details. But for now, the story is that this case is still in court, and it will be a historic decision in itself. A lady who writes a novel, and in the same way, after 7 years, her husband is killed. How much does she have to pay for this murder? Or is this novel based on the experience of an Annie of Brophy? And she said that her wife would be the one to be questioned. All these questions are still being asked.